Hello, FPV Skittles here. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a more in-depth review of this, the Tiny Whoop Prop Popper, which was created by Winston FPV. So as you can see, this design is pretty ingenious. I've always wanted a really good prop removal tool. You can see some of the past type of prop removal options I've used. But this is definitely one of the best designs I've ever seen. Brandon Johnson, aka Winston FPV, has been working on his design for over a year, and he's got it to this production level now. I know a lot of them are sold out. Hopefully, if you're watching this now, that means that there's more in stock and you can get them before they sell out again. But if you don't, be sure to get the reminder because they will be coming back in stock as Brandon's able to create more and send them to Jesse so that he can put them on the website. Anyway, if you haven't seen the 1-minute short, basically how the prop popper works is that it has a fork and a plunger, and what you're going to need to do is you take the fork part, you place it underneath the prop and in between the bell, and then you get it in position so that you can put the plunger into the hole on the top of the prop. So you can see fork underneath here, hole there, and boop, pop it off. So then I also saw someone in the comments ask, oh, then how do you get it off of the tool? Well, you just open the tool up and take it off. Anyway, let's prop off all these props and try some different styles. These are the HQ 4 blades, and they're pretty easy to get off since I've removed them before for the demo. So you can use the fork by itself, but the most satisfying part is squeezing it and having it just come off in the tool. So I like to do that when I can. But I'll show you without the prop, without the plunger part, it'll still work. You just push it same way you would before with the prop part, and then most of the time just shoving it in there because the tool goes from really thin to fat. Just shoving it underneath the prop will pop the prop up enough that it loosens it, and then you can just kind of pull it off from there. But obviously that's not as cool and satisfying as popping it off in your hand with the plunger. So whatever works best for you. Anyway, so we've got all 4 of the props off right now, right? Those ones were all kind of easy. Let's stick one of each different type of prop on here and then try to remove some props that have been stuck on a long time on this build. I don't think I've ever removed those. So first we've got a Azzy here from Newbie Drone, and this is one of the most difficult props to remove in my experience. I typically just end up cutting these off because they're also pretty fragile props, so they end up breaking, and then so when I need to remove them, I'll end up cutting them pretty often. Yeah, that's gonna be tight on there. Alright, I'm gonna press it down all the way down to the bell like I typically would. I know some pilots don't like to push it down quite as far, but I like to get my props down as far as possible because I break a lot of shafts. You can see I've got here a couple motors with broken shafts. And I think if the further the prop is down, the less likely that is to happen. So we got an Azzy on there. Let's do a Gemfan. These are all fresh props, so they should be pretty tight. Gemfans are notoriously one of the most difficult ones to remove, I would say, especially when you push them all the way down. Gemfan on there. Here, these are T-motor prototype props. These should be out pretty soon. They're pretty light. Seems like the manufacturers are going with light props for the new ones, like the new HQ prototypes. This one's also have a shorter hub. You can see the shaft comes all the way out the top of this prop. So that'll be interesting to see how we use this. And then I guess we'll just toss another HQ on here. I also have a Gemfan BiBlades, but that's basically the same as a normal Gemfan. We've got some 35mm props too. So got some hair in there. All right, so we push those on. Let's get them, let them get settled in here and see. Okay, so these props, HQ ones, I've been flying this build for a while, and I just switched it to a 35mm prop with a pro frame. So these props should be pretty well stuck on there. Let's go through some of the older prop removal options and show you why the Tiny Whoop Prop Popper is the best. So here, this thing is basically a joke. It comes like with some binder flies, super flimsy, like bendable metal. The idea is that you stick it under, just like in where you would for the fork of the prop popper, but then you would like somehow like get it to pop it off. But yeah, look, I'm just bending the tool. Some people use it upside down the other way, kind of stick it underneath here, and then try to bend down, put leverage on it that way. But yeah, as you can see, I basically just, oh, I broke, did I break it? Yes, look at that. So that's how good these things work. I just broke that. Trying to do it. Oh. Yeah, well, that shows how useful those things are. Here is a better version of that. It's thicker. I think this one comes with some beta FPV stuff. Let's see if we can get the prop off. Same idea. You can either try to leverage it this way. Not quite. I think it did come up a little bit though. Oh! I heard a pop. I think it just slipped off. Didn't actually push it up. I don't think I hurt the motor. All right, anyway, same problem here. Both these options, you're leveraging the prop and you're pushing it against the shaft in a way that I feel like it definitely is possible to bend the shaft. I've never really removed the props this way just because I'm scared of bending shafts that way. So yeah, it's just this opening is a little bit too wide for these props. Maybe a fatter bell would work better, or a fatter hub one. But HQs have a pretty fat hub to start. Anyway, I can't seem to get it off. But all of those ones put pressure on the shaft, and I feel like that's a problem. You can definitely bend shafts that way. I've heard of other people, especially on 702 motors, bending shafts, trying to remove their props this way. EDOC, you got a sticker here. He has a link that he sends to a lot of people that's a chip razor, and it's like a stronger, just like a better tool version of this. It comes with like a handle like a typical tool, and that works. I've seen him do it pretty good, and that works well, but it's the same problem. You're putting pressure on the shaft and you could possibly bend it. Now, a couple other options. What I've always tried to do typically is isolate the bell, right? You try to pinch the bell, but not where the motor wire comes out because you don't want to bend those. And then I try to twist the prop back and forth while holding the bell, and that's typically going to be able to get it off if you're able to stop the bell from spinning. There we go. So I was able to pull that one off with my hand. It does hurt. You can see I've got indents in my fingers here. But I was able to get that one off after I leveraged it a little bit. Let's see if we can go a brand new one. Oh, the HQ is not, that one wasn't that difficult. So I was actually able to pull those off just with my hand. Here, another option that I've used before is using some type of tweezers that are real skinny and then get fatter, and then kind of try to stab them in there. Typically that doesn't work when it's still in a frame, but after you get the motor out, do something like this where you squeeze it below the prop and then you kind of just push it further on. Kind of the same idea, and then it pops the prop off. It doesn't seem to be working here. This one's stuck on there pretty good. So that's also an option. And then finally, when I really can't get a prop off at all, what I'll end up doing is taking snips and literally like cutting the hub. Like I'll just grab it. Normally sometimes just grabbing it with the snips is enough to leverage it, but if that doesn't even work, then I'll just literally like cut into the hub like this. And then you basically destroy the prop, but you're able to pull it off pretty easily once you kind of cut up the hub and loosen the center. So that's an option, especially if your prop is destroyed, but obviously none of these are super ideal. All right, so now let's use, first, here is a very similar tool to Winston's. Like, it looks like one of the early iterations, possibly, that was created by Mr. Rabble, aka Phil, and he showed me this at Wootopia at the same time, actually, that I got this from Jesse. So it's kind of crazy that they both came up with a very similar idea at the same time. So the same basic idea as the fork part of the prop popper. You put it under there, and then you jam it under, and then you use that to leverage and pull it up. But the problem that I run into with this one is it's still kind of thick at the front, and it doesn't get that much fatter as you go towards the back. So just jamming it under the prop doesn't typically loosen it that much. And then you either have to just do the same thing where you bend it back and you're leveraging against the shaft, or you have to try to pull it straight up, and there's not a lot of grip, or like you can't get a lot of force just like trying to squeeze it and pull it this way, which is the really nice part about the prop popper here. You're able to put a lot of force and keep it stable as you're pulling up. So really cool that they came up with a very similar idea. You can just see Winston's just a little bit more refined as he's gone through many iterations. So let's pull this last one off with the prop popper. Okay, got it under there now. That in, and see, it's still just the easiest and coolest, most convenient option. All right. Now that we've got all these on, let's try to remove them with the prop popper. Let's first actually try to remove them with our hands. So we've got an Azzy, especially the foreblade. There's like just nowhere to grip it without destroying it. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna break it if I try to pull it off with my fingers, because you have to like bend the blades to get a good enough grip on there. So let's go in with the prop popper. Get it underneath there. That's nice. So I'm actually thinking that's probably loose enough now. I could feel it really pop out as I squeezed it. So let's see if we can just, yep. And look at that. Pulled it right off. Didn't even need to use the other part. All right, now let's try a Gemfan. That one is stuck on there. So I can feel I've jammed it in there pretty far. I can try to pull it off, but that is a lot of resistance already. So this is when the plunger is really going to help. Right there. And the Gemfan, and oh, it's going to take some force. Oh, okay. That was one of the more difficult ones. I really had to squeeze that pretty hard. I felt like I was almost going to break it. This little piece sticking out here is just basically a 0.8 millimeter shaft from like, you know, like a brushed whoop. So I believe on the newer ones they have a piece of 3D printed material here, and if for some reason you do bend or break this little like plunger shaft, you are able to replace it. Talk to birds aren't real about how to do that. All right, let's do the two other props. All right, HQ, we've done a bunch of those, but this is a nice fresh one on there that hasn't been taken on and off. And yeah, it is stubborn. I shoved that down really far too. All right, so you have a stubborn one. I kind of work it from the three different openings in the propellers, assuming it's a tri-blade. So, oh, there we go. That time I was able to jam it under there enough. You can see it slid and popped itself out. So then, oh, popped out. Pulled off. And finally, I've actually never removed one of these T-motor prototype props. They seem a little big in the frame here. But let's see. It's got a really short hub. I definitely was able to press it down basically flat against the bell. And, oh, super simple. Those ones are actually kind of loose. All right. Well, there you have a demonstration of the prop popper on pretty much all the 31 millimeter props that we've got here. Oh, the last one we got to do is the HQ new prototype props. These ones do not have holes in the top, so you think, oh, can the prop popper still work? And yes, as we've demonstrated before, you don't always need to use the plunger. These ones also, since there's not a hole in the top, you're never really able to press it all the way down on the shaft, which I don't think is ideal, but these props are super light and awesome. So let's see, I'll stick this under here and use the leverage to get it off. Nice. This one you can see is all messed up. Maybe it looks like I was trying to pull that off before. I broke it. See, that one's a little stubborn. If you do have a stubborn one, you still can use the plunger to help yourself get a grip on these HQ ones. What I do is I put it in, and even though there's not a hole on the top of the prop, there's still, you know, a spot on the top. And you can still use that to help grab it. There we go. Up there. So see, it didn't actually stab in since there's no hole, but I just pressed it into kind of the indent and helped it pull it out. And we got one more prototype prop here. Nice. All right. So as you can see, Tiny Whoop Prop Popper, very versatile. Works great on all tiny 31 millimeter props. Let's now try it on some bigger props. So we've got 35 millimeter props here. These ones are absurdly easy to take on and off, so it's not even like really worth using the prop popper. These are the ones that come with like the Meteor Pro frame, and they're super loose, so those are really easy to get off. Here I've got the iGao motors, which have a 1.5 millimeter shaft. Oops. So that's a little bigger, so I actually had to drill out these props specifically to get to this size, and they actually are pretty tight, so let's use the prop popper to pop one of these off. So yeah, even just trying to shove it under the hub is a little difficult. Alright, I'm going to shift to a different set. There we go. Got it under there enough so that I could get the plunger into the hole now. And Boom. Got it. Look, that one actually had some hair in it, so good thing we got it off. Anyway, let's toss that one back on. As you can see, even with the 1.5mm shaft, still works. And these custom drilled out props that are quite tight. So let's go up another, do a 40mm prop here. It's a BiBlade from HQ, I believe. I don't know that I've ever taken these off. Oh, they're not very tight, but yeah, pretty easy there. I've also got these more traditional Gemfan 40mm. Let's push one of those on there and try that, because I know these are pretty tight. Oh yeah. Oh, that one went almost down flat on the bell too. That's a much bigger prop. We'll try that in a second. Give it a second to stick on there. I'll toss that back on. Oh, and we have also have 2-inch props here. These ones are pretty typically easy to cut off from your hand. Yeah. So, I mean, there's not as much need for a tool here, but it should still work. And also Gemfan makes a tool that works with any props that have these holes on the sides. So like they're 40mm and up. It's a pretty cool idea too. It sticks into the holes on the side, and then you kind of like push something down into this that pushes against the shaft and pulls the prop off. So similar idea, but let's see if we can get this 2-inch prop off with. All right, got it positioned, and yep, works also. So most any press-on prop you're going to be able to pull off with the tool here, but I think the 31mm are really where the issue is. I guess there's some 40s too that are pretty tough, but let's try this one now, this Gemfan. I really jammed that down on there, so you can see that. See if we can get the fork underneath it, pop it off. All right. It's definitely tight. Alright, I got a little loosening on that side. Let's go between these propellers now. Alright, a little bit of a loosening there. Let's go between the last set. Oh, really having some trouble getting it far enough underneath there to get the plunger in the right spot. Oh, I think I got it now. Not quite. Oh, let's see. Oh, you know what I did? Oh, didn't think about that. I thought I heard something come off. I pushed the C-clip off. Because the fork is kind of like a little C-clip remover. I heard something hit the ground. Can I find the C-clip? No. Alright, C-clip too tiny to try to find. So there, look, that's something you got to watch out for. If your prop is really pressed down, make sure that you don't press the C-clip off like I just did there. Let's get an extra C-clip. Got one here on this dead motor. Kind of double tutorial now if you've never replaced the C-clip. Basically, what I typically do is take... Actually, let's see if we can use the Tiny Whoop tool for it. Typically, I would use something like tweezers and push it in here and pop off the C-clip, but let's see if we can use the Tiny Whoop tool. So I'm just going to line it up with the opening. press. And it's a little wide. Not quite. The forks are a little bit too wide to do it easily, so just do it the way I typically do with the tweezers. All right. So I got that C-clip off, right? See right there. Now I just have to put it on to the motor. Place. Oops. There we go. You can see, kind of have it sitting there with the mouth opening, facing the shaft, and then you just push on from the back. And C-clip reapplied. Alright, so watch out for that. I haven't done that yet, but I also haven't tried to remove one of those one of these 40mm props. So I pushed off the C-clip while removing it. Anyway, that was a more in-depth review of this Tiny Whoop prop popper created by Winston FPV. Also give out a shout to Mr. Rabble again for going down the same basic path creating his prop popper, but Winston made it the most refined and is now being sold at tinywhoop.com. Go there and get yours today, and if they happen to be out of stock, then make sure to set a reminder because there will be more in stock periodically as Winston's able to create them. He's hand bending this metal piece, and then obviously the 3D printed parts get printed and then assembled. So it is a labor of love, and if you want to support that and have one of these awesome tools for yourself, check out tinywhoop.com.
There's a device that I've been using called a Whoop.
We bleed!